It's fair to say that my first few races in Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 were a bit of a car crash, but it was during this adversity that I had my first big breakthrough by way of one of the new mechanics. Shunted off the glossy track by a monster truck, I go with the momentum of my car to loop back towards a point further down the track. Belting at high speed towards the barriered edge, I use whatever little boost juice I have remaining to jump, then double jump the barrier to get back on track, leaving the menacing monster truck in my slipstream. That was the beginning of my comeback in the Hot Wheels 2 hands-on, which ended in a thrilling victory in the new elimination mode, where at intervals whoever's last place gets eliminated. As a fan of kart racers, it only took me a few goes to get into the groove of things, quickly picking up the game's core mechanics of drifting and slipstreaming, as well as new ones such as the jump, double jump and lateral dash. The drifting and slipstreaming were a key part of what made the first Hot Wheels Unleashed a hit, and they're just as satisfying and effective here. Use them well and you can pretty much spend the whole race going at what feels like 160 miles an hour, though it's probably something like 40 because you're a tiny little toy car. Of the new mechanics, the jump in particular adds a really cool layer, and during my swift 40 minutes with the game, I squeezed in several scenarios where I was about to plummet into a hole or I was shunted off the track. Then I used the jump to recover. You can use that jump to cut corners too, as well as get that little bit of extra air when coming down off a ramp so that you land ahead of your opponents rather than behind. The lateral dashes give the sequel some newfound aggression. While the results of bumping your opponents are nowhere near as drastic as, say, Donkey Kong slamming into Princess Peach to send her tail spinning off Rainbow Road, there's still enough to bump a rival into an obstacle or onto the wrong side of that crucial track barrier. Beyond that, all aggression is strictly physics based. I had a blast turbo boosting myself through the lightweight cars ahead of me, sending them hurtling over my bonnet as I sped through them. And I've been told by the developers at Milestone that the game's environments are much more interactive this time around, so you can knock physics-based objects around and into your rivals. Upon release, the game will feature 50 tracks split across 5 environments, all of which are new to the sequel. I got to play around in the backyard and mini golf course environments, and while they're not as vibrant as those found in other wacky races out there are still plenty of jumps, falls and hazards to watch out for, such as giant balls being dropped from the sky or barriers that pop up out of the track. I'm also told that there will be much more off-road focus in this entry, which explains the inclusion of quad bikes. Beyond the "you're small and everything's big" quirk, these tracks aren't as fantastical and imaginative as you might be used to from other kart-like racing games. But that's not too much of an issue, as your focus will very much be on the race itself. There are very few moments where you're not hyper-focusing to stack boosts or planning to time your drift for the massive looping corner you see up ahead. The breathlessness and the intensity of the race itself, despite the dinky presentation, is more Wipeout than Crash Team Racing. Milestone has stressed that the in-game economy is strictly in-game, so while there are likely to be cosmetic microtransactions as with the previous game, all unlocks, perks and progressions are attained through simply playing the game, which is great to hear. As I understand it, much of this will be unlocked through the single-player campaign, which will introduce all kinds of colourful characters, so it'll be interesting to see how the developers imbue the game with a bit of personality. There is a lot of content here, much of which I have yet to see, and it all sounds great, though I was a bit disappointed to hear that, as with the original game, split screen will be limited to just 2 players, because this would have been a perfect beers on the sofa party game with your mates. Well, now I think about it, I can't recall when I last played a fun racer type game with 4-player split screen. It feels endemic to the genre. But hey, who has real shoulder-rubbing friends these days anyway? Clearly, a big selling point here will be the online multiplayer, and with its tastefully added new mechanics, there's no reason why Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 shouldn't build up momentum in the slipstream of its predecessor, boost up beside it, bump it off the track, and then speed off to victory. And that is the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. As always, we really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful in some way or another, do us a solid, go on down below, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and give the bell icon a little ding so that you get notified whenever we've got new stuff for you to watch. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.